Welcome everyone this morning, and we are going to be treated with a presentation by Pam Jones on her adventures in Siberia. If everyone would put their screen on speaker view, Pam is going to address us with a few words before she starts her presentation. Welcome, Pam, and thank you for addressing us.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. And you don't have to put it on speaker view if you don't want to see me. You can leave it on gallery view. But I wanted to take the opportunity to just tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, though, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I have some friends who are joining us from Australia and Russia and Canada and America. So really a warm welcome to you. It's lovely to have you on board. I'm a travel photographer with severely clipped wings at the moment. I travel alone mainly, but I also travel on photographic trips. I try to pick ones with photographers who are local to the country I'm visiting. And I've been on about a dozen of these sorts of photographic trips, all very varied, some of them in the UK, but most in other countries. I went to Siberia in late January 2019 with a small group of international photographers. There were 6 of us, 2 of whom are tuned in this morning. So I do feel a little bit sheepish because I know their images are fantastic. I'd always wanted to go to Siberia for many reasons, but 2 in particular stand out that I'd like to share with you. The first is that I'm an ice junkie. I love the stuff. My Twitter handle is Ice Junkie. I've loved it forever. Unfortunately, though, as I get older, the cold affects me more and is a constraint to me, particularly on my digits. My ice images in this presentation, however, are almost exclusively in the second half, just to let you know that. The second reason for wanting to go to Siberia is a love affair that I have had with Russia, which grew from work I did in the former Soviet Union. During that time, it just totally got under my skin. It still is, and that will never go away. So I'm going to, Suzanne, I'd like to share my screen now, or I'd like to share my screen now. So I need you to allow me to do that. Hello?
It should be all right.
Yeah, lovely.
Okay. Yes, we have the picture.
Yeah, good. So just set it up. Okay. So the first thing I want to point out is the title page is a cheat. It's a Norwegian frozen feather. I just like it, and it had the right amount of negative space, and so that's why you've got it in front of you now. I thought about the title quite a bit and put the adventures in because mainly because of my dissatisfaction with some of my images. Many are very flawed in my view. And so I decided to documentarize the talk. And I think I've just invented a new word there, but I quite like it. So I really wanted to give you a flavor of the area. So the first half, I hope will give you that. I will say this now and try and get it over with, although I'm sure to refer to it again. I found the temperature unbearable. It varied from -30 to -40 at its coldest. It meant that my usual slow style of photography was impossible. My hands would freeze and I wouldn't work at all after about 5 minutes out of the truck. And I had to keep bobbing back in and out of the vehicle, which meant I didn't want to stray very far from it at all. And normally, with my landscape photography, I like to stand about, I like to stir, I like to absorb the feelings and the flavors of the landscape before I actually photograph. That's how it gets into me. Well, that was just out of the question in Siberia. I just couldn't even entertain that, which was really frustrating because some of the landscapes were I felt phenomenal. So my talk is definitely a talk in two halves. The first is about history and place, and the second half is landscape. Very different halves, but I think both halves will make you feel a bit cold. And I hope both halves you find interesting. To the journey then. I flew from here to Moscow. The big M it's got Moscow in there somewhere. And that was a 4-hour flight. I then flew after finding the Siberian plane, which was a bit of a Moscow nightmare. I nearly missed it because all the signage was confusing. It wasn't clear at all. I had to change terminals and there was no real indication that I had to do that. I was getting no help until I burst into tears and somebody took pity on me, which was the intention, I have to say, I have to admit. And then I got help and was put onto a little train to go to another terminal. And I got the Siberian plane by the skin of my teeth. And that was to take me over here to Irkutsk, which is about here. This is Lake Baikal, which was my final destination, but Irkutsk is around here. And that's where I was meeting the other photographers. This bit of the trip took me 6 hours, to sort of give you an idea. Now, when I go on a photo trip, I always arrive 4 to 5 days before, prior to meeting the group, because photo trips very rarely spend time in the place of the initial meeting up. You generally meet and then you're off to your locations. And I like to absorb some of the feeling of the area and the country on my own without influence. And on this trip, I wanted to explore some of the history of the Decemberists. And I knew a landscape photo trip would not be offering me that at all. So I'm aware that my selection of images, I have both challenged and supported stereotypes. I make no apology for that at all. I just want to acknowledge it. So the first few images are to give you a flavour of what Irkutsk is like walking around. Irkutsk has a population of approximately 580,000 people. It isn't very big, but when you consider the location and the absolute difficulty of these people's lives, then it just seems enormous to me, really. I'm amazed anybody survives. The life expectancy of a man, though, is 63 years. So, their life expectancy is much shorter. So I think the temperatures and the difficulties do take its toll. A lot of the tourist stuff, a lot of the tourist information is in either Russian or Chinese, hardly any English at all. So it's quite difficult to find your way around. I do know the Russian alphabet, and so I was able to read the signage at least. So this is just one of the main streets in Irkutsk. These houses were built in the Decemberist era, which was 1825-ish, around that time. And they're wooden, and I don't think probably they don't hold the heat very well. A lot of these houses are dilapidated. Some of them have been turned into museums, but I mean, all of them I think are incredibly beautiful. I love them. This was opposite where I was staying, and is the Holy Cross Church. And these images are of, all this is ice, and the icons are either painted into the ice or stuck on, paintings stuck on. Very powerful. I've never seen anything like it before, and beautiful when the sun shines through them. I went in late January, but there was an awful lot of Christmas paraphernalia still up, and I was quite surprised by that. Apparently they don't take it down until about mid-February. I mean, I think some of our places do that too. That's a close-up of one of the iconic paintings. Beautiful, vibrant colours, stunning. This image I've put to show some of the magic of the night at that church. I'm aware that I've got loads all over the place of blown out highlights, but it was quite hard to photograph, and so I've put that in to give you that flavour of the magic, hopefully. The War Memorial is guarded by young women, totally young women, and they have sort of 4 to 5 hour shifts, standing stock still, and bitterly cold. I don't know how they do it. I mean, they're obviously kitted out for it, but nevertheless, it's really hard. This is an image of some of them going off their shift. I had to take this because we'd never find this in one of our shopping malls, and I just liked the sort of cultural contrast of this image, that this image affords, really. This is a main street, the main street in Irkutsk, and I've put it here for some people who would be very excited by the fact, as was I, there's a Max Mara shop there, and I was delighted to find that. It's a very sophisticated city, Irkutsk, which surprised me a lot. And I will come on to the reasons for that a bit later on. They have a market, which is absolutely fantastic. And I was particularly pleased because when I was in the former Soviet Union, they had markets then, but they would be so poorly stocked. A shelf like this would have nothing in it, and I'm not exaggerating, it would have nothing in it, and it was just so sad to see the paucity of produce, really. So I was really pleased and happy for the Russian people here, you know, to see that they do have that choice. And of course they would, times moved on, but nevertheless you carry these images in your head with you, as I had done from my previous knowledge of the Soviet Union. So it was lovely to have this contrast. People were very, very happy that I was taking photographs here. This is Caviar. People were very happy, very friendly, very smiley, not at all bothered, but the security guards were very bothered. And they saw me taking photographs, marched up to me. They did not confiscate my camera, thank heavens, but they did march me out of the market sharpish, basically telling me it was illegal to take photographs. I later discovered through Alessandro, our guide, that it isn't illegal to take photographs at all. They were just being a bit jobsworth, really. But I managed to get a few photographs anyway, so I was okay. Bees are very much alive and well in Siberia, and these are just a whole load of different farmers have contributed their produce to this market. Quite a lot of different types of honey, and also a lot of bee pollen here. So I thought that was quite good fun, really. This was just before I was marched out. Public art in Irkutsk is mainly ice sculpture, which is great fun. There's an awful lot of it. I'm only showing you a couple of pieces of it, but there is quite a lot of it. And also children's playgrounds that are made of ice, which are good fun. There was a maze behind this construction as well, which was good fun to walk around. And a Big Ben. I'm always surprised to see Big Ben cropping up in extreme places. Liz Bug and myself recently went to northeast Brazil, and we saw a Big Ben there. And yeah, I always find it very incongruous, but Big Ben is very popular. This was another children's play area, and I so wanted to do this and go on that slide, but I had all my photography gear on me. It wasn't easy for me to do it. Had I been with somebody else, I think I would have climbed up there and I would have slid down it. It just looked fun. Another Decemberist house in a bit of a dilapidated state. But I think probably maintenance is very hard work in temperatures like this. So, yeah. So the Decemberists, they were generally artists and noblemen and officers who revolted against Tsar Nicholas I. They revolted on 26th of December 1825, hence the name the Decemberists. And those arrested were either killed by beheading, or they were sentenced to 10 years hard labour and then exiled in Siberia for the rest of their lives. The men were not allowed to keep any contact at all with their former lives. And some of the wives, 11 of them, I think, voluntarily followed their husbands. They weren't allowed to bring their children. Now, when you think about that, the decision and the choice that those young women had to make must have been so painful and phenomenal. Some of them didn't have children, but some of them did. They also had to give up their noble status. So they had the status of serfs when they did this. Massive, massive choices. The wives, though, were allowed to write letters home to relatives and friends. There was no law against them doing this. So they were able to keep up contacts for the men and for the other prisoners as well. So that they were very, very important, these women, very brave and very important, and they are recognized as being so. They have monuments to them in Irkutsk, and they're never ever ignored. Their role in this is never, you don't feel it's ever been ignored. So the men, once arrested over here in St. Petersburg, which is what that says, walked all this way to Irkutsk. Now, they were arrested in December 1825. They arrived in Irkutsk around the summer of 1826. So I'm not absolutely sure how long it took them to walk. They walked in chains, but it was a very, very long way. And when you think it took me 6-hour flight from here to here, which is more or less the same, it gives you an idea of that distance. The distance is actually about 6,000 kilometers, and they walked to a prison cell which was big enough for one man, no windows. I mean, just imagine. Prince Trebetskoy was one of the key figures in the Decembrist movement, and this is his house, which is now converted into a museum. He wanted to abolish serfdom, and he only escaped the death penalty by the leniency of Nicholas due to the fact that he was a nobleman. So the following images are some of the rooms in the house. Because he was a nobleman, he was allowed to receive donations of furniture from relatives, arranged, of course, by his wife. Other prisoners were not allowed this at all, but this gives you a flavour of the sort of life that they would have lived in St. Petersburg and what they actually gave up, because although they were able to transport all of this into this house, all the trappings that go around this, they had to give up and lose. So they had to recreate that for themselves in Irkutsk, which is no mean feat at all. They exiles continued to study and teach children, both their own and local children. The wives provided the materials for this because the men weren't allowed anything. And so they did create their own society, and gradually the city became a center of intellectual and social life. It became known as the Paris of Siberia, and the exiles held concerts in their houses because they weren't allowed to go to any public areas. So they held concerts in their own houses, which obviously were big enough. They opened hospitals for people and animals, and they opened schools. And in this way, Irkutsk became a thriving city, because once, after some years, they were allowed to gradually move out into the locality a bit more. The next photograph I absolutely love. It's not a good photograph, but I love it because this woman at the top is Princess Volkowski. She was the daughter of Prince and Princess Volkowski, who were the Decembrists. And her mother was known as the Princess of Siberia because her mother was the first wife to follow her husband into exile. She was 20 years old. And just, oh God, when you think of what she, the love, the passion, everything that she must have felt for her husband, phenomenal. And so this little woman was born in Siberia. And when you look way down here, these people at the bottom are people I recognize. I don't know them, but I recognize them. They're like me. They look like me. They're wearing clothes like me. I can identify with their lives completely. And through looking at that line, I can trace all the way back up although I have no ancestral connection, I feel an emotional connection with these women. This is another ice sculpture. And I like sunlight through twigs. And that's really all this is about. It's in Irkutsk. And we all like sheds, and we all like sunlight on sheds, don't we? And that's just what this was. As I was padding about Irkutsk, I came across this little group of sheds and just had to take photographs of it. This was a surprise to me. It was a very grey day, and it's an Alice in Wonderland mural, and I was really surprised. It's very bright and very well executed. Somebody has recently told me, though, that Alice in Wonderland is a children's study book in some Russian schools. So actually it probably isn't, I didn't know that, and so it probably isn't a surprise, but it's lovely, beautiful. When the Soviet Union changed over and became Russia through perestroika and glasnost, a lot of Lenin statues were destroyed. A few have survived, however, and this is one that's survived. I like this image because I like the juxtaposition between the Lenin statue and the pub cafe in the bottom left. It's only a juxtaposition because of what we place upon what Lenin stood for and what he was like. So that's the only reason for that. But in my mind, it's juxtaposed. I found a group of policemen who I asked to take a photograph of, and they all said no. I got a bit scared, but then they said no, only if I was in it. So they were very cheery, jolly chaps, apart from this one. I think he wasn't so, but all the rest of them were really, really sweet. And the reason for me putting this in is not just to show you the policeman, but to show you my footwear. These are European, but these are UK winter boots that I use, and they're perfectly adequate for UK winters. They are not perfectly adequate for Siberian winters. I got frostbite in my fourth toe, not severe frostbite, but it's still numb and won't move now. So the nerves were damaged. And I blame it all on BA because they lost my luggage for 2 days, and I only had these normal boots to walk around in. My proper big boots were in my case. This was a cafe in the main street in Irkutsk, and they served cappuccino. Now, I give you some advice: never ever have cappuccino with condensed milk in. It is not good, but that is what they had. And they also had these lovely macaroons here, which, it was a nice cafe though. They had nice music, and people were friendly in there. This is the 130th Kvartal, which means district. It means 130th district. It is a historical reconstruction of old Irkutsk with 17th century houses that have basically been rebuilt. The Russians call this a theme park. It is not a theme park. It is a reconstruction of a little gold rush village, basically. I think Irkutsk was started in 1605 or something like that, around that date. And so it was around gold, and I can't remember the other thing it was around. But yeah, so this is just a reconstruction of what it would have been like then, sort of, I think, actually. When I was in the former Soviet Union, I loved their propaganda posters. I found them absolutely fascinating. I love the artwork. I like the graphics. And yeah, this was in the Irkutsk Museum, which I was pleased to see. I had to take a photo of that. This was a small house built in the Decembrist area, a little bit more dilapidated than the bigger ones. An armaments display, which of course we wouldn't see in our country. For people, you probably recognize that's Ernest Hemingway. And this is the Intelligentsia bar. And as far as I'm aware, Hemingway didn't ever visit Irkutsk, but I read some articles not that long ago about him having been a KGB spy. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. It's quite fun to sort of think about. The bar was lovely. It was really unpretentious. It was a really comfy place to be. Nice it was. And yes, these fish are standing upright, totally upright, frozen, as are these. The exchange rate, it was approximately 1,000 rubles to 13 GBP. So that gives you the sort of exchange rate. I was a bit surprised actually to see these green mussels, because I think they're New Zealand. I think they come from New Zealand, green shell mussels. So I was a bit surprised to see those. I've just noticed now they're there as well. Irkutsk is on the Angara River. There is also another river called the Irkut River, which flows into the Angara. The Angara flows from Lake Baikal, and it's the only river that does flow from Lake Baikal. And most of Irkutsk is on the Angara. The Angara never completely freezes over, because the water changes temperature only in the upper part of the river. So from about 300 meters down, depending on the season, the water is always 4 degrees. And at the beginning of the river, the water flows from the bottom layer. So that then takes about 2 kilometers for it to cool down enough to freeze. So that's the reason this river looks, well, it isn't frozen. It doesn't just look not frozen, it isn't frozen. So I then met up with my fellow photographers, and this was halfway from Irkutsk to Lake Baikal. It's 7.5 hour journey between Irkutsk and where we were going in Baikal. And this shaman shrine is in Bayandeh. And shamanism is the main belief system of the Buryat people. And the Buryat people came to Siberia from tribal Mongols. So they were descendants of the tribal Mongols. And their belief system is a mixture of yellow shamanism and Buddhism. And yellow shamanism is a nature-based belief system. There's no dogma, there's no sacred book, no idol, nothing, but it is a strategy for survival, which I think in Siberia is probably really appropriate. This was a roadside cafe, we stopped here for lunch, and I thought it might be interesting to show you. This was the lunch menu. And when that was converted into food, that's what it looked like. These are the ubiquitous herrings, which I love, fortunately. For those of you who know me, you know I love dogs. And so I had to get one or two into this presentation. And this one was well, they were all really super friendly, all of them. And this one tried to get in our vehicle at one point, but we wouldn't let him. He was really sweet. So this was our first view of Lake Baikal. It's 395 miles long and is 216,000 square miles. It's massive, absolutely massive. It's got 27 islands, so we were never going to do the lot. We got super excited when we got to this bit, which was the edge, and it was like we were children. We just all had to pile out and get onto the lake and stand on it. Well, we were going to spend 7 days on this lake, but I think we just didn't know exactly what the trip was going to be like. And so we just got very, very excited about this. And some local dogs came and joined in our frolics as well. And it was all really nice. And we were all sort of whooping. And yeah, we were like children. We were told to take our seatbelts off at this point and to never put them on again in case the ice gave way. And so that sort of tells you that it's extremely important to have good guides who can read the Baikal ice. And this will become much more clear as I progress with this talk. We had Alessandro, who was also a film director, but he was a fantastic reader of the ice. He was really, really amazing. So this is the map of Baikal, Lake Baikal. This is Irkutsk, where we started from. And we drove this Bayan Day, where the shaman's shrine is, and we got on the ice here. And we were aiming to go here, which is Kojira Village, and this is Alkonski Island, which is one of the it is the largest island on Baikal. And we concentrated our spots around here. So you can't see here, there are lots of little islands in this bit here, which you will see in my talk. So we just concentrated here. This is an iPhone pano of Zamagoy Island. This was our first stop en route to Kojira. A bit tight in the frame, but you know, just good. It gives the idea, the flavor. And our first experience of the mirror ice or glass ice. Walking on black ice is okay. It's a bit like walking on glass, but if you step on any here, and you get some snow on the sole of your boot, whoosh, you're off. You're slipping and sliding weirdly all over the place. Not a pleasant feeling at all. So you do have to be really, really careful. Even though you're walking on this, you might have a little bit of snow that you tread on. And that can set you off as well. So it is quite... it's still tricky. I thought you might like to see the hotel we stayed in, which is this here in Kojira Village. It was nice. It was a nice hotel. Very unassuming. So we had sunrise. We had lots of sunrise shoots. Sunrises at 9 o'clock. This is a noisy photograph taken through the window. 9 o'clock sunrise, brilliant. Gosh, that's paradise to me. And this is sunrise on Cape Dragon, which is Zamagoy Island. And the next few images are Cape Dragon. Beautiful, beautiful quality of light. Really, really lovely. And when the lake freezes, it freezes, it doesn't all freeze flat. If it's ripply, it will freeze ripply, because the freezing part takes place very, very, very quickly. And here you can see frozen waves. These are waves that have crashed onto the island, and they freeze straight away. So next up is a video of traveling on the ice. Sometimes we travel for up to 3 hours on ice like this. So it gives you an idea. A warning though, I'm not a videographer, but it just gives some idea of what it's like traveling. And that's my furry hat. Lance actually asked whether I was going to wear my hat during my presentation. No, I'm not, but there it is on the front of the car. And here we come to the frozen waves. It's a lot more bumpy. Okay, so these are more frozen ice waves on Utrecht Island, and I like this location a lot. You get a sense of some of the transparency of the ice here. Bit like a wedding cake or icing sugar. Inside the caves, the ice caves, oh, very eerie. You can hear the ice cracking, but it echoes all around the cave. A very eerie sound. And a bit scary, but eerie. This is a new ice crack. They happen just overnight. And they happen because of massive temperature drops, and the consequential expansion of the ice pushes the ice up through what might be initially a small crack. This is Utrecht Island. I loved this particular location because here you can feel the transparency, the depth of the ice. Oh, I just kept standing there looking down. It was lovely. We had a sunrise shoot here. Those are our vehicles, and walked up here to the top. I hated this actually. It was really, really windy and bitter. And I didn't, I managed to get a few shots, but oh gosh, no, not ones that I would have shot had I not felt this cold so much. I had to get back down to the vehicles too quickly. This is an island called Shagagargan Island. I'm not sure how you really pronounce that. This place proved to me that the Siberian wind really does exist. There are 7 different names for wind in Russia. I like the minimalist feel of these shots though. And you can see the beginnings of ice cracks, you know, all over the place. Well, they are cracks, but you can see the beginnings of the big ones, if you know what I mean. I think that's Anastasia there, who is with us this morning. You can see the wind blowing across the surface of the lake here. And after that location, we went into Narats Pub, which is on Alkon Island. And those of us who drank had vodka shots all round. And I tried vodka milk here. And Wes and Mickey, thank you for letting me use your images. A word of that to people. As photographers, we all think of model releases for strangers. And I don't like taking sneaky photographs. I always want to get somebody's permission anyway. And with friends, I feel they deserve the same respect as a stranger would. So I would always ask people. I never assume that it's okay to put somebody up. So I will always ask people. And this is the pub. And this one I like because I like these little characters. I didn't buy them, but I like the little characters. I think they're sweet. So, Suzanne, that brings me up to the break.
And
I'll stop sharing. I'll stop sharing.
Okay, you stop sharing. Thank you very, very, very much, Pam. The amount of history we've been able to learn, the amount of the facts that you've given us regarding the Decemberists, I'm sorry, I was looking for the word, is just absolutely amazing. I really, really appreciate it. The amount of history that we were able to learn, and the photos were absolutely fantastic. Also, I was quite amazed as to how many English words we saw on buildings or on signs. Even the menu you were showing us had the translation in English. So people do venture to those areas, and something I will never consider doing, the danger that you put yourself in the brave lady that you are, is, I really, really appreciate. That's probably one way that many of us are going to be able to visit Siberia, because it is quite an adventure. Looking forward to the second half. It'll even be more chilling, and we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll allow everyone to chit-chat, and we'll meet again at around 11:30, if that's all right. Okay?
Really lovely. Thank you, Suzanne.
Okay. Bye for now. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've made yourself a nice hot drink, because we're about to view some very cool pictures. Go ahead, Pam. We're looking forward to your second half.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. And thank you very much to you all for coming back. It's nice to see you. I've talked a lot about cold, and I thought it was worth me telling you a little bit about clothing. You might be interested. For each time I dressed, and sometimes that was 2-3 times a day, I wore, this is the list, 5 layers of pants, 6 top layers, a small hat underneath a big furry hat with furry ears, 4 pairs of gloves, which included photographer's gloves, 4 pairs of socks, and big snow boots. It took a very long time getting dressed, and it was actually quite exhausting. I was warm enough, really warm enough. Not too warm, but I wasn't cold. Apart from my fingers, my digits, they really did suffer. Apart from that, that kit kept me snug. So the next 2 images is a frozen boat in Kojira, and we drove over frozen waves to get to this boat. Oh, just a minute, right. And spent a bit of time slipping and sliding around it to take photographs. I don't know what this memorial is. And Anastasia and Wes, if you know what this is, let me know during question time at the end. It's obviously somebody has lost their life, but how, I really don't know. The next images are Ilenka Island at sunset. There are a few of these images. This was a really lovely location. The light was phenomenal, absolutely beautiful. That gorgeous light that shines through clouds and just does the magic. I love the changing light as well, the pinks, the yellow. We all do, don't we? The pink, the yellows, the blues, the way it changes. That's Wes, and that's Anastasia. Both of whom are with us today. This was really a photograph to show the beginnings of one of the big cracks. Zamagoy Island again, from a different viewpoint. So at the beginning, we went to Zamagoy, and the ice was flat and black like glass. This is the other side of Zamagoy Island, and this is when the ice froze, when it was rippling. This selection of photographs are basically around sunrises, sunsets, icebergs and ice caves. And it was a fantastic location for ice caves here. Here's the glass ice. This photograph, it's a work in progress. I'm trying to get a particular effect. I want a more painterly look about it, and I don't usually mess around like this, but I will work on this image because I have it in my head what I want it to look like. It's not quite there yet, almost. The effect I wanted to give is the feeling of the waves crashing onto the rock, and that sort of foam and mist that's produced as the wave bounces off the rock. It's almost there, I think, and it might not be possible, but I want to try. It was quite difficult walking around here. The sort of struggle of walking over this sort of ice for me was difficult. I brought a nose muff with me, thinking I'd have problem with my nose. I didn't at all, but Mickey got frostbite near his nose, and some of us got photographer's burn, which is what happens when very, very cold metal gets onto your skin and takes off the first layer of skin or produces a blister. So you've really got to be careful not to touch your metal cameras with bare fingers. Anyway, Mickey got into a bit of trouble near his nose, and so I gave him the nose muff. He was very thankful for it. And you can see here, we had to climb along through all of this. I wasn't as adventurous as some people were. I was very cautious, and also I had problems with wanting to get back to the vehicle quickly when my fingers became too painful for me. So it was hard work, because you do not want to fall onto these pieces of glass. Well, it feels like glass. They're like shards of glass. You really don't want to fall on them. Here's the wedding cake effect again up here. Sometimes it was easier to just get on your bottom and move about. This is inside one of the caves. One of us in there, you can see, shooting outwards. It was like stalactites and stalagmites inside the caves. Interesting. Eerie. Nice though. But you couldn't get to the caves without sort of maneuvering your way over these obstacles. This photograph, I can't see this without feeling a little bit irritated, because I hadn't learned how to do sunbursts when I took this photograph. And now when I look at it, a natural sunburst it's just crying out for one here. I can do it in Photoshop, I know how to do it, but I won't, because I haven't done, it's something that I feel I'd want to put in camera. And I'm not averse to fiddling around, but for that I would be. Oh, why am I right? Sorry about that, I seem to have gone backwards. My fingers, when I got into trouble with them, they took a full 15 minutes to painfully unthaw, and I do mean painfully. And Alessandro, our guide, would have a cup of tea waiting for me to put my fingers in. When he saw me coming back to the vehicle, he would know that that was because my fingers were being difficult. So we had this little kind of unspoken communication between us. It was very funny. There he is. There was a new crack in the ice this particular day, and we weren't able to pass over it in the spot that he was expecting to be able to. It had happened due to a massive temperature drop and the consequential ice expansion. And so we spent, as we couldn't jump this crack then, it took us quite a while driving up and down to find a really safe space to pass in. And this was the reason this was unsafe, because the depth of the ice was very, very, very shallow. Now, this next video is from inside my vehicle as we jumped one of these cracks, and it's to just give you an idea of what that experience was like. There we go, jumped. And yes, in the middle of nowhere, this is a loo. Don't ask why, it was just there, it kind of just appeared. And the sorry, all the waste is collected underneath in a bucket. So again, I suppose somebody comes and drives it away. It does not go into the lake. But amazing that it's just there. This is Lake Nersko, which is Noor Lake, and this lake is famous for its frozen methane bubbles. They're created by methane gas, which is released from organic matter rising from the lake bed, and then the bubbles rise to the surface. Now, my attempts at getting the money shot were thwarted by my frozen fingers. It's not an excuse, that is a reason. What I wanted to capture were these bubbles through crystal clear ice. It is possible by walking a bit of a distance, you can get it. But I couldn't venture that far away from the vehicle. So because I had to access the vehicle very quickly once my fingers gave up, usually within about 5 minutes of being out of it. So I was not able to walk far enough to get the crystal ice. So these are my attempts, which gives some of an idea. I mean, imagine that through crystal. It's just gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's gorgeous anyway, but it is actually quite a phenomenon. quite like that with the ice going down and the bubbles coming up. That's a dead fish, or a frozen fish, which is dead and frozen. This is a massive ice crack. Sometimes the ice cracks appear because earthquakes occur underground and the plates then collide, pushing up the ice as it expands. And that's quite a phenomenon. That feels like an ice plate. That feels like a plate being pushed up. I know it isn't, but it just gives that feeling. These photographs I took with my iPhone. It gives you the feeling of the violence of the energy inside to do that. The whole lake is littered and lined with cracks, and I was surprised by that because I thought it would be totally flat. I like what I call diamond ice, which is crystal clear rocks of ice, very similar to stuff you get on Diamond Beach in Iceland, but of course different. All ice is different. I like that kind of mishmash of, I like that different mishmash of ice and snow and the abstraction of it. Here comes another jumping crack video, this time showing Alessandro standing in the safe spot so that the car can gauge the crossing. There he is. This location is Alkonski Gates Pass, and it was sunset on the pass. Noisy photograph, I know, but this was going to a sunrise shoot on Ilenka Island. It was very windy indeed. You can see perhaps the wind blowing the snow across the ice here. And two videos now. The first video shows the car fighting against the wind as it prepares to jump yet another crack. And the second video shows how Alessandro would find safe spaces for the vehicle to cross. And he investigates the ice in the second video and discovers that it was unsafe. So again, it just gives you a flavor of what it's like.
Вот как берутся ледяные щели.
And this video is Alessandro trying to find a safe space.
Сейчас будем проверять трещину, насколько она живая, насколько она водяная. Вода.
No, that wasn't safe. Sometimes well, not me, I stayed in the vehicle, got out to help strengthen the cracks. But here, Anastasia told me afterwards that they wouldn't let her do it because it was too dangerous. But she was itching to help. But they do know their ice, these blokes. She did help a little bit there, but they kept their eye on her. In this video, the crack was okay to jump, and he sticks a pole in the ice so that the car knows where to aim. They have to be very precise, otherwise disaster can happen.
Немного срабатываем, трещина идет от края, черт знает откуда, до, ну, в общем, на огонь мы ее еще.
That can happen if you're not careful. This is not my image. This is an image Alessandro gave me, and I've put it in just to show you what actually can happen if you haven't got really good guides who can read the ice properly. And I think that was a mild version of it, but nevertheless a bit scary. This is on the North Cape, and you can see the sort of transparency of the ice a bit here. It was a grey day, this. This wasn't a grey day. This is Cape Covoy, which is also up on the North Cape. And there were some massive cracks here, which was another example of earthquake activity pushing up the ice. And we got very excited about this place. Well, I did anyway, I loved it. It was here that one of our party developed frostbite in his finger. Not serious, but it was frostbite. It was a bit concerning. We sometimes travelled up to about 100 miles an hour on the black ice, which was pretty thrilling. When it wasn't windy, and it wasn't always wind, but it was beautifully silent, really, really beautifully silent. That looks like water, doesn't it? It isn't water, it's ice. Weird. I love those sorts of tricks that make you think, oh, what's that? What is it? And then you realise it isn't what you think it is. That's Lake Baikal from Alkonski Island. A few images of abstract ice. These are my snow boots to give you a feeling, hopefully, of looking through the ice. I think I said before, it's a bit like standing on those glass platforms on high-rise buildings and looking down. Really, really strange feeling, strange sensation. This image I like, although the white balance is wrong. I like it, and I like the complementary colours between the mountains here and the ice here. And it feels like it's shattering. It's got a glass feeling about it, glass-like feeling. This is a video walking along a crack, a thin ice crack. And I'm speaking on this video, but you wouldn't know it because the wind is so strong, it covers up my voice. So here we go. On our last morning, Alessandro got hold of one of his friends who has some husky dogs, and he brought them for us to meet. Oh gosh, we loved them. They were brilliant. They leapt out of their car, and their paws couldn't get a purchase on the ice, and they would be slipping and sliding, and then they got used to it, and they were able to trot about quite happily. But oh, they were lovely, lovely dogs. We really enjoyed them. Well, those of us who were dog lovers anyway really enjoyed them. I've put these on. This is Anastasia and Wes. Thank you very much for letting me share the images. This is to show you the frozen faces that we had all the time, but sometimes it was worse than this. I only remembered to take them on this particular day. And this is Anton, our other guide, with a frozen moustache and beard. We always entered the lake going past this boat, and so it was a bit of an iconic image for us. Another frozen boat, but in the summertime this will become upright and it will just be sailing. Doesn't look like it now, but it will. This is Shaman Rock, which is quite a popular destination. We did not go down there. There's nearly always somebody down there apparently, and in fact on this occasion there is as well. There's a little vehicle there, a yellow bus, and here there are people. So it gives you an idea of the scale. I rather like it from this viewpoint though. It's pleasing from this viewpoint. There's a little hole through there. And I thought you might like to see some images of Kojira Village. Not sure that this is typical of Siberian villages. I expect so. It feels quite an unforgiving place. And you can just imagine that living somewhere like this in such a remote area. This is the local supermarket, which actually was not badly stocked. Nothing like Waitrose or Sainsbury's there. And finally, I had to take this. I have a friend in Bath who has a Harley, and I wanted to show her what this, a Harley in Irkutsk airport. I thought it was really cool that there was a Harley there. So that is the end of my talk.
Pam, your entire talk demonstrated triumph over adversity. You have educated us with your words and images, how life is managed in the extremes of weather. Amazing, showing us its beauty. You were a very brave lady. traveling over ice, not always 100 feet deep. We could see some of the patterns with the water right there. Without seatbelts, thank you very much. Fighting bitter wind and cold. Not only today's limitations on travel would make this trip a challenge, but your talk has allowed us all to have adventures in Siberia. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you very, very much. Your photos are amazing. The talk was supremely interesting, so thank you. I think I only have one question in chat box. I think you mentioned there were 27 islands on the lake. How many islands did you actually get to visit?
I think we visited about 9.
9. Oh my, it really gives you an idea how vast that lake is.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other questions? Does anyone have any other questions? You've obviously answered all of our questions, Pamela. So I thank you again, sincerely, for that wonderful talk. So once again.
And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity
The
to
pleasure
do it as well.
Thank you.
I appreciated it. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.